that's where I'm at in life. My 20s when I was single, hustling, it's like, that's all there was to do. And, I definitely put in way more hours, during those years. But for me now, it's like, I still love making records just as much as I did back then, but I have other things that I love just as much now too that I didn't have back then. And so it's just making time for everything but just sticking to this schedule. It seems to make everyone happy. So it's good.
Yeah, there's seasons in life, and I feel like also like especially now, like where like I'm in my mid 30s. I think you're like in your early 40s based on what you've said about when you were in high school. But this is a season. We both have young kids, right? So like this is a season of life to be focused on that and not obviously not put the studio in the back seat, but to have it needs to be more regimented. Otherwise, like everything's going to fall apart, right? There's just so many. It's a juggle, right? So like you gotta have the right balance. Otherwise, you're going to topple over in any of those other departments, and you really don't want to when you're raising a family and you need to support yourself with the business. So like everything matters, and so I think that's why a lot of people in our age bracket are so focused in on like getting that balance right these days. I think it's so important. And like you said, in your 20s, you can hustle hard and
work 16 hours every day. Yeah.
And there's a beauty in that. And and it's a beauty that also only lasts for so long. Right. Like, so when you're that age, you got to take advantage of it or, and when you're in your 30s and 40s, you got to like buckle down. And I mean, if that's the lifestyle you're doing, like whatever, everybody's going to have different, there's so many different people doing so many different kinds of lives, and it's all legit. But for people in our situations, totally thinking about this stuff all the time to kind of I'm always thinking about these things just to kind of keep all the things in check because they're all important, right? So
for sure.
Yeah, totally, man. I love that. So that's cool. I'm gonna think about accountability coach and just
I'm telling you, it's a great investment. I'm hooked now. Every weekend I look forward to it. It's like I've got to make sure that I don't disappoint Mo. So it's amazing. Yeah, it works well for me. Maybe not for everyone, but
awesome. Well, this has been a super fun chat, and we've talked about so many things, and this is awesome. So I guess we'll come to the close, and I'll ask you my final question, which I'm sure you know what to expect here. But just like looking back on your journey, in audio and music, was there something that you did or didn't do early on that you'd want to tell your earlier self and be like, Brent, keep at that. It's going to get you where you want to go. Or maybe Brent, stop doing that. It's holding you back. What would you tell your earlier self?
Probably to work on the projects that really matter and not to work on projects that you shouldn't be wasting your time on. I think Joe Ciccarelli, is that who it was? Yeah, I think said something on a podcast once about like you can work on certain projects and they're not really like going to get you where you want to be. I don't remember the exact quote. I wish I did. I should have it memorized. But to focus on those projects that are going to constantly be advancing your career. And I think, early on, like I said, I would just take on anything and everything. And, now I'm at a place where it's like I have the confidence, have the experience, and I feel like I can perform at a high level and work on, any record that kind of comes my way. But I'm 40 now. It's like I wish that back then I was chasing like the coolest artists, the coolest records at the time, as opposed to just kind of getting, just focusing on any project that pays. I guess that's what I would probably tell myself is don't worry as much about the money as the talent. I guess to sum it all up.
Yeah, in the beginning when you have the more time to do that, or it's not as the stakes are not as high. Yeah, that's a great time to kind of focus on, that's something that I think about also sometimes, of like, what if I'd stayed in New York a couple years and like played in bands, before moving to Israel? Or what if I had, I pursued like a wedding band for many years. What if I had been pursuing like recording like bands and stuff instead of pursuing like the gig life? Maybe it'd be further along. But, you can't really, I guess you can't really regret it because you got to.
No, I mean, I still got tons of experience along the way.
Yeah, you got like life. We go down our we go down whatever path we're going to go down, but
for sure, and no regrets.
But I'm the one asking this question, obviously. But
yeah.
but it's good to know, for for listeners who are still, at that beginning stage, like, if you're in your 20s before you hit our age and you have kids and you got to like, balance it all out. Maybe that's the time to focus in and like, and do that. Like if that's what you want. Right.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's like I've always wanted to work on like the records that like entertain a wide audience. For some people, just getting paid, to do audio, any kind of audio is fine, and that's great too. For me, it's like I've always wanted to work on like records that, like I said, are getting millions and millions of streams. And at the time, like I said, I was just taking on anything and everything, and just because I needed to pay the bills, and so focusing more on trying to focus more, I think, on the right projects instead of just any project that pays. Is what I tell myself.
Yeah,
I think.
It's interesting. I feel like for so many of us, I know me included, like the goal of doing this career path was to keep making music for life, so that you could, and just the fact that you're doing that is like in of itself enough. Like wow, like it's amazing. I'm making music every day for like a living, and so it could be easy to be complacent and just kind of like just keep at it without trying harder for bigger goals. And so maybe this is a good takeaway for the audience is to like maybe think bigger and have bigger goals than you maybe even put for yourself. And
that's it. Yeah,
because that's something that, like, I think my goals have always been a little bit too small. Of like, if I could just keep doing this for a living and support my family, that's great.
Yeah.
And maybe you need to aim a little higher in order to. Like I think that sometimes you need to aim a little bit. I've mentioned this on the air also, but before. But like if you shoot for the stars and you get to the moon, that's like pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to shoot a little higher, and then you'll actually get to maybe a bit beyond what you imagined.
Yeah, for sure.